the knight from a chessboard. For many, it exemplifies medieval warfare. The hard-charging warrior, covered in armor, with his sword and shield, ready to defend king and the fair lady. But what many don't realize is that gunpowder in firearms were a part of the medieval battlefield. Gunpowder was introduced in the mid-1300s, and the first firearms began to appear in the later years of the 14th century. They were very crude, little more than cannons with a touch hole in the back, and your chance of hitting your target was maybe 50-50. And yet, they were there. Henry V, in his siege on Harfleur, used cannon. And of course, by the end of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance period, it was firearms that dominated, not knights in armor. Well, today, I am showing you a segment that was reported from a gentleman in England named Geoff McWhirter. He is a member of a battle reenactment group in England, and I encountered him several years ago when I was doing research on, well, medieval firearms. So, I leave you to him. But before I go, I just want to remind you that if you like this video, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, so please do. Hit the bell notification so that you know when other things are coming, because there are more videos to come. And if you're watching this on my channel, thank you. If you're watching this on the Alabama Renaissance Fair's YouTube channel, subscribe to that. There is so much to find. And as we get closer to the fair, although this year's it will be a virtual fair, keep looking. We're going to have so much more on the website and on that YouTube channel, and you shouldn't miss it. So again, I leave you now to Geoff McWhirter, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Geoff. I'm a member of Wythe Retinue, a reenactment group based in the English Midlands covering the period of the late 15th century, the period which covers what was known at the time as the Cousins' War, known to later generations as the Wars of the Roses. We're primarily a black powder using group. We have a range of weaponry ranging from small hand cannons, which are literally like a small cannon on the end of a stick, up through weapons like this one, which I'll talk about later. This is an arquebus, right through to a 3-inch field gun. So this is some of the black powder itself. It's a modern fine grade black powder. The original black powder that you would have been able to get your hands on in the Middle Ages was really quite a nasty mix of stuff, and it was just a mixture. It tended to separate out in the barrels when you transported it, so it was very unreliable, very unpredictable, and the last thing you want with a gun is unpredictable propellant. Incidentally, black powder is not an explosive. It is in fact a conflagrant. In other words, it simply burns very, very fast. It's normally carried in a small flask made from a horn, like you see there. Later ones had a built-in measure, but early ones simply a stopper. So on the left there is a small measure made of pewter, which I use to judge the amount of propellant I'm putting in the gun every time it's fired. So let's show you something with this stuff. As I mentioned, black powder is simply a conflagrant. It doesn't explode, but it does burn very, very fast. There's about an ounce of powder in that tray, and so that is 4 times as much as I would normally load the gun that you'll see shortly with. However, you've probably all seen the business in the movies where somebody lights a powder trail and has time to get away before it reaches the barrels, which cause the almighty explosion. It doesn't really work like that. I've now lit my linstock, and watch what happens when I apply the burning linstock to the end of the powder trail. Almost instant. You wouldn't have time to run very far, would you? You will notice that I've now divested myself of almost all the steel which I was carrying earlier, simply because when you are dealing with black powder, the last thing you want is anything that might fall and cause a spark and a premature ignition. Something else that a gunner always carries is a small sharp knife. When I did the demonstration with the powder earlier, something happened that quite often happens. Both ends of the match became lit. So quite often you have to rapidly cut the end of the match and get rid of it. This is a short piece which I use just in the linstock. I'll just put that out. Turn my knife to its sheath. This is the gun I wanted to talk about. Amongst the guns we have in the group are very, very simple things which are simply hand cannons. That is a thing that looks like a very small cannon just on the end of a stick. Early guns were actually fired from the shoulder and you simply touched, hand touched. This gun is a rather later development, and it's an arquebus developed from what was known as a hook gun, which is what the word means. Hook guns literally had a hook here for hanging over the walls of a castle or defence. Early ones simply had a SERP. This mechanism is the SERP, and this would have come out to here, and when you wanted to fire you would simply pull up on the lever. This is a later development. It's called a spring lock. In other words, this SERP has got a spring in it, and in particular it's a button lock. This is the firing pan with your lit match in here. The firing pan is closed and you check that the match is lined up correctly to go in. You cock, having loaded the gun. Now this is something I can't do today because we're in our garden at home. However, if we charge the gun, first of all ensure that it's empty to begin with. Pour your charge of powder in, and then you'll see this is a gunner's pouch which has got these two small bags up the side, one of which contains my shot. Now, the shot is much smaller than the bore of the gun, so it would normally be wrapped in something like linen, because in order to make a gun fire you have to have compression. That is, you let the powder burn very, very rapidly but build up by blocking the tube with something that will eventually give way, and at that point the gun will go bang properly and expel the shot. You normally, when you've loaded, have both ends of the match lit hold it well up here, prime from your flask. Better still, have some in your hand and prime from there, because a flask is, after all, a hand grenade. I have a friend who lost a finger when somebody brought the match too close while he was still priming from the flask, and the flask blew up. Not a good thing when you're an osteopath by trade. So, close, mount your match, check that the match is going to go in the right place, and rather than firing from the shoulder, you're going to get quite a flame from there. These are fired from the hip. So open, and at that point the button, which is the trigger on this gun, comes neatly under your thumb, and you press the button, match goes in, whoosh, bang. Not intended to be a terribly accurate thing, after all it's a smooth bore. The round ball is a loose fit, but if you're aiming at a great body of men on the other side, you're bound to hit something. So there we go, my little arquebus, which is known as Patience after the daughter of our master gunner. It's ironic that, because she hasn't got any. Thank you.